Okay, so today we're going to be creating a scale drawing, which is a scaled down in size drawing to match an original product. So a good example of a scale drawing is like a blueprint for a house. Obviously, those cannot be drawn to scale. However, the measurements on the blueprint have to be to scale, which is proportional to the actual house that you want to build. So we're going to do that with a comic strip. We're just going to enlarge this, and a scale could be an enlargement or it could be a reduction. In our case, we're going to enlarge. So what you'll need in order to do this is you'll need some 1-inch grid paper, easy to find and print freely. And if you cannot, I'm going to show you at the end how you would actually make your own. You'll need a square from a picture or a comic strip or a magazine. I like to use comics because the lines are pretty bold and it's fairly simple drawings that take place. I also like to choose ones that don't have words because the words tend to be a little bit more difficult to copy over to scale. So I chose Garfield here. He's laying on the beach. We're thinking about summertime and what's coming up. You'll need a ruler with centimeter markings. So make sure that it's labeled and has centimeter markings. And if you're going to create your own grid paper, you'll also need a 1-inch ruler. And then you'll need a pencil. So to get started, I'm going to start by making a 1 centimeter grid across my comic. That way I can duplicate it in size on my 1-inch graph paper. So I'm going to start here. All right. So what you're going to do first is make sure you know where 0 is on your ruler. Some rulers, it's the edge of the ruler, and sometimes it is actually a 0 mark on the inside. You want to make sure that 0 is lined up with the edge of your comic, and then you're going to mark in centimeters as you move across the comic. I would recommend you use a pencil. I'm using a pen just for the ease of you being able to see it in the video. We're going to now slide that down, and we're going to duplicate this again at the bottom, making sure we know where those lines are. Now we're going to connect those lines. This just makes sure that our horizontal and vertical lines that we're going to create are straight. Okay. Now we're going to turn our paper. We're going to do the same thing again. This will give us our horizontal markings. I'm going to come back and check this last one. It looks like I could go one more. Ooh. My pen wants to slide. All right, so now what I have is a 1 centimeter grid across the comic. This is going to be duplicated into the 1-inch grid I have on my graph paper. Whenever you're doing your scale drawing, it's not really a freehand drawing. You're trying to do this mathematically, so you want to copy 1 square at a time as you move across your grid. So the first thing I'm going to do is really determine how large the space is that I'm going to use on my grid paper. So from my comic, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes across. 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to corner this off here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll corner this off here. So I know that my finished product should be in this rectangle, this section of my paper. Now comes the fun part. I'm going to start copying 1 square at a time from my comic onto my paper. And remember that it needs to be proportional. So you're trying to make sure that you take up the same amount of a square on your grid paper that you take up on the comic. So what I see here in this very top left box is the edge of the seashell. So I'm going to start to draw that. I see that it comes down just a little into this next box. And I see the bottom of the shell and the design in the center. I want to make sure it takes up roughly the same amount of space. As I move across this, I see that in the third box I have 3 grains of sand. And then nothing else across that top row. So I'm done with the top row. I'm going to move now to the second row. In the second row, right underneath the shell, I see 2 grains of sand. Then I see the corner of the blanket, which actually comes down and begins here at the bottom. It comes up into this box. Just a little bit of the corner comes up into that top row. As it comes over, I want to see that it's right about here and into this next box. And I'm actually going to stop. I'm not going to draw any more of it because it starts to pick up Garfield's face. And I'm going to want to come back and do that kind of in one fluid movement. I see there is a flower here at the top that is in this edge, 2 petals down, 1 here at the side, and the center of the flower. Okay, then I'm going to move on across the figure into this next box. I'm here on my picture. I'm here. So now I start to see the corner of his sunglasses. I see his eyelashes. There's a grain of sand here. And then I can start rounding out the bottom of the sunglasses. I see that they go down almost halfway through this next block. And they're sort of square. And I'm going to continue moving down and across my figure, trying to copy square by square as I go. I want to show you a finished product so you can see where we're headed with this. Another good reason to do it in pencil. You can come back with color. The scale that I'm using is 1 centimeter equals 1 inch, meaning 1 centimeter on my comic corresponds to 1 inch on my grid paper. And this is how your finished product will look, copying square by square and adding the color to the end when you're done. Now, if you need to make your own paper, then you're just going to take a plain sheet of paper and you're going to grid off the paper the same way we gridded off the comic. So if I want my scale to be 1 centimeter to 1 inch, then I'm going to come across with the inch side of my ruler. I'm going to mark the 1 inch markings as we go across, slide it down into the bottom and connect, and then I'll do the same thing with the horizontal lines. Now, I'm not going to write on this paper because you actually could do a larger scale if you wanted. If I notice here, this doesn't take up much of my paper, just that top corner, so I could actually do 1 centimeter to 2 inches. So I would mark off the centimeter on my comic and I would mark off 2 inch markings across my grid. And that would just give me bigger boxes. So when I copy my picture over, it will enlarge it even more. You could do 6 inch blocks and make a poster. So the main thing that you're going to concentrate on whenever you're copying over your picture is to make sure that you're copying square by square and that what you are copying into that square is proportional in size to what you see on your comic strip. Now, I'd love to see your finished products. So if you choose to do this assignment, please email me a picture of your product so I can take a look.